All right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Okay, hold on. Let me mute myself. Okay, I muted myself there. All right. Make sure that the audio is working right today. It is. Okay. Naima, mute yourself on your side. Good. Okay, Naima, you need to put in headphones because otherwise it's going to keep making that echo sound if you have them. Okay. Um, all right, y'all. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I am Kishshana Palmer. If this is the first time you are hanging out with me on a live, where you been? Okay, where you been all my life? Let's just to be clear about that. I am so excited to be ending this week with y'all, and I've been teasing out that I'm gonna have a special guest, and so I'm so glad that I was able to get on a schedule. But y'all, we have been talking for the past several days. I feel like a few times this week, definitely last week, about all of the good, the bad, and the ugly of managing a team and why you need to have a plan in place so that you can have a healthy, thriving team. We've talked about 99 problems, y'all, but planning tends to be one. We said, okay, get on in here and make sure that you understand how to pivot. Know when it's time to love your plan or list it. Okay, we talked about breakups and relationships and why planning is so important to all of those things. And so today I wanted to bring us all together just to end out the week and talk with actual clients. Some of y'all have been sending me notes like, well, who are the people you work with? I work with a lot of folks, okay? And so, but I had to bring on the bright and shining ones who I love to death, okay? Don't tell my clients who I don't love. I love them all. But I wanted to bring on someone who has been able to walk this walk and really can walk you through challenges and opportunities of what it means to manage a thriving team and to get your team to that place of thriving. And so it is so fitting that I invite on one of my good friends, clients, and colleagues, Naimah Bilal, and I'm going to bring her up on the stream now. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We can hear you everywhere now without the echo. Everybody saying good morning on Instagram and good morning on the live stream. The LinkedIn crew is the crew. Okay, they're the ones who get it popping. So let me make sure I have the comments up. Yes, so Naima, I just by way of introduction, you're of all the accolades and things. If y'all haven't looked her up, you will in a minute. Naima is the Chief Development Officer at the Children's Literacy Initiative. It is a fantastic organization that is working to eradicate and really just do away with the racist practices that happen within our school system, starting from when our babies pick up their first book. Forget that. When they start mouthing their first word. And your job is to lead the charge on all of our fundraising and marketing initiatives for that organization. And you have like 17 other hats, right? Am I right?
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of some of them. But yes. I can't be wearing all these hats and still survive. Yes.
I love it. I love it. So, okay. Unmute yourself on the stream.
Can you hear me now? There we go.
We're good. So I think it's so important that we kind of dig into what's the good stuff about being a manager. Let's try that first, because I think that we jump right into the challenges. But lots of folks, they can't wait to get into the management seat. They want to be in the big chair.
Well, there's so much good stuff though about managing. When you have the right tools and the right objectives and the right motivations for wanting to do it. But ultimately, if you are curious about people, you love supporting people, you wake up in the morning thinking, how am I going to make not just myself successful, but the people that I get the pleasure of working with successful, you'll be fine. I think, but the challenge is that so much of our management preparation comes from just the opposite. Well, how are you directing and how are you making decisions for and how are you tracking the performance is very myopic and very narrow in terms of the scope of what management can be. And at the end of the day, management is knowing people. And
from the way you described it, like what we think we're getting. So you ever gone to a new place and you were like, I'm gonna try this new dish. and you normally get the same thing all the time. And this one time you decide, okay, I'm going to get this new thing over here. And you try this new dish and you're like, this was not what the description laid out. This is a little dry relative to what the description was.
That's right.
I think a lot of times folks have this idea.
Yeah.
Right. So you come into your company, you come into an organization, maybe an individual contributor role, and you are focused, you're working, you're hitting your goals, and you got your eye on that seat. And you think that when you get into this managerial role, you're going to be doing less of the work you were doing before and more of something else. But what happens, Naima, when we get into that role, actually?
Well, so your role expands, the responsibility expands.
Yeah.
Because as a manager, this is your universe now, right? Yeah. And because you are responsible for getting your team, there is some element of guiding a team, but supporting your team, it's work. It's work. And you have to be really, really clear about how you're going to accomplish your goals, which is why this is where the plug comes in. Like working with Kish, it's like there are all these multiple layers of management when you get in the seat. That starts, and this has been a theme all week for you, right? Starting from the inside out, right? And once you build upon like from the very micro all the way out to the macro, you begin to see the immensity of the work. It doesn't mean it's unattainable. It doesn't mean you can't do it. But if you don't have the full scope from like the very, very like core elements of your own identity and how you work and how you move in your team, to the next circle of like your team, to the next circle of the department, to the next circle of the org.
Look at that.
And once you have that scope, you begin to realize, I can't manage management without a plan.
Look at that. And so the thing that I think is so interesting is that I remember when I got into my first management role, and I've talked about this before, I think I was probably like 22, right? Fresh out of grad school, newly minted MBA.
Fresh and so clean.
Okay, ain't nobody dope as me. You hear me? And so I got into this role, and Naima, I thought I knew all the things, okay, because I had a whole solid year. At first, I was real smart, right? So I was like, why did my MBA in 1 year, not in 2? So I was over here thinking I was smart. I had lots of book smarts. Let me tell you why I didn't have real life experience. I didn't know nothing. Okay, so I take on this first team of these professional folks, okay, who have been in their industry, in their work for years, and here I come in with my ideas about how to do work.
To be young.
To be young. I had all these ideas.
Yeah.
And my team, they basically jumped me in, if you will.
They had to like gather you a little bit.
They had to gather me a little bit and help me to understand like what my job really was about. So I had to learn how to manage my own workload, which really pressure tests your discipline. It pressure tests all of the sort of ways in which you learn to work, right? It pressure tests your ability to be self-managed. Yeah. But it also pressure tested my ability to be able to talk to people. And I was talking to folk reckless out the text barrel.
Ooh. That's really real.
So what happened to you in your first management job?
So, I mean, anyway, it goes back to this whole notion of how we are conditioned to think about the management role. And one thing that we're taught to think is that we need to have all the ideas. We need to have all the steps and all the plans. And when you think about, like, you've talked about inclusive leadership all week, there's so many correlations to inclusive management. Inclusive managers, you don't need to have all the ideas. In fact, if all the ideas are coming from you, how are you letting other voices
in the room
be the determinants of how they're not just putting together their plans, but how they're implementing their plans? And so as a manager, one of the things you can realize about managing your workload is you don't need to have all the ideas.
Shout out. Hello.
Hello. And once you realize that, you get out of your own way and you don't feel like you're tethered to this, frankly, white normative, very white male centric idea of what leadership is and further what management is. It's not what we think it is.
It is not.
It should be inclusive.
And I think that actually puts the pedal to the metal on folks who got it out the mud, right?
That's right.
They were, a lot of us have been in roles, particularly when you look like us.
Right. That's
have been in roles where you had to roll that sleeve up.
Yep.
You know, you had to grease it up, and then you had to get it done by hook or by crook, oftentimes without the types of resources, whether it's professional development, whether it's mentorship or sponsorship, whether it's peer lookouts. Like, you need somebody who's a lookout, who's like doing this for you.
That's
You know,
right.
around the corner. They come in, hurry up. You need somebody, but a lot of us didn't have that in our formative professional years. And so by the time you get into that management seat, you have that mentality of like, it's just me, myself, and I. You know, like, you out here for self, not meaning to be necessarily. You want to be more inclusive. You want to be people-centric. All of your foundational muscle is about riding solo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I mean, but that's what I think actually positions, especially people who have been who have experienced management that is anything but inclusive. It actually makes us some of the best managers.
Yes.
Because so much of how we orient our management approach is not replicating what we experienced that wasn't supportive, that was very one-sided, one-directional, that wasn't inclusive. And so the question we ask ourselves when we do get into the seat, certainly that's been my experience, is not just how can I not embody that, but how can I embody something different?
Something different.
How can I embody a management style where people don't only know that I'm moving inclusively, but they feel it?
Exactly. And that feeling is important. And we tend to put our feelings down. You've heard it a lot of times, like, it's just business. This is not personal, which means, it implies like, F your feelings. And you're like, actually, no, like your feelings are a part of the whole makeup of what motivates you, of what keeps you engaged, of what keeps your team members engaged, of what inspires people around you to just get out there and get it, because they see that you're putting your back into it in a way that's not breaking your back.
That's right. I mean, and when you talk about social justice fundraising, this is what my team and I do. We are a team of social justice fundraisers. And when you're talking about eliminating structural racism through early literacy, there's ethos in there, yes. But there's pathos in there too.
Ooh, break it down. Talk to me. Some people are like,
there's
let me run to the dictionary.
Which is like, I know you Kish is always talking to me about my dictionary words, but ethos, pathos, logos. These are like the core dimensions of communication. And when it comes to communicating to someone, to an entire group of stakeholders about the impacts of racism, white supremacy on our babies, and how eliminating it can actually amplify their literacy journeys, you have to integrate pathos into how you manage folk. And so what that means is that it isn't just business. There's the logos, which is the logic and the numbers and the metrics and all of that. But there's the pathos that comes into that too, right? The feeling, right? And then there's the spirit, right? And so I think the way I like to conceive of management anyway is this fully integrated, holistic approach to management that takes into account, it's business.
Yes.
But the business means nothing without people. And with people comes the ethos and the pathos. And so I think the multidimensional view is what fuels success. And I have to tell you, I'm talking about success. Lord knows I've made so many mistakes. I'm still making mistakes. Right. But the point is that I understand the mistakes. I understand what has caused them. And then that puts me into a position where I can learn from it and not repeat it. So what it has done is helped me make fewer mistakes along the way. But that understanding of a more holistic view of management has certainly, it's been helpful. It's been useful.
I love that. And I think it also, like, the fact that you're able to say, like, mistakes are going to happen.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been talking about when you think about planning, like, this is not about to be a magic pill that I'm going to give you on Tuesday, and we have done lots of planning together. So, there is no magic pill. You have to lay it out and you got to sleep on it. Yeah. You have to do your dance on it. Then you have to try it. Then you have to be like, that
pray on it a little bit.
But it allows you to rebound, to your point, more quickly.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
And to not feel like every decision is like the decision. And if it goes left, then it's going to be cataclysmic to everybody involved. And I think that that's an important part. What feels cataclysmic to me, though, what feels like the whole earth is rocking, is when you try to lead a team and manage the people on your team, because leading is that's the vision setting, that's the example setting, right? That's the top line goaling, that's the inspiration giving, that's the vulnerability having. And when you got to manage the people and you don't have any kind of plan and you just doing it from the hip, we've been there when we're like, okay, we're just gonna, all right, we
might as well start from somewhere. We want to start from here.
What are some of the traps that you found that we fall into when we don't plan the way that we're trying to go?
Well, with teams in particular, I mean, you talked about this, and I love the way you say this. You say, if you're not planning, you're playing.
That's it.
And I would take it one step further. If you're not planning, especially for fundraising teams, if you're not planning, you're also staying. You're not just planning, you're staying. So to be in a state of stasis for fundraising is untenable.
Untenable.
You have to grow. I mean, and look, it's very sort of capitalist, and it sort of speaks to like late stage capitalist, like, sort of shepherding of capital. But for social justice fundraising, it's like, I see it as reparations. So I see it a little bit different. But the point is that this whole notion of growth implies a management approach that is based on a plan. Absolutely. Right? So, and to have respect for your team, to have respect for yourself and your own time. You know, we talk about rest is work. You set yourself up for a more balanced load when you have a plan to work off of, even if that plan has to shift and be modified and adapt given circumstances and context. When you don't have a plan, you are staying in a state of stasis. You're not moving. You don't move, and you can't grow from there. From a fundraising standpoint, that's essential.
So so listen, you just blew somebody's mind. So Renee said, I need a social justice fundraiser. Any recommendations? So let's help Renee understand, like, being a social justice fundraiser means that it is a state of mind. It is a philosophy about the way in which we decide to align financial resources with activating our mission. Right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yes. Align. And there are other dimensions to that too, which is that when you're shepherding capital, you are helping your donors understand their place in advancing social justice.
That's right.
When you are shepherding capital, you realize that the philanthropic space in and of itself is rife with racism and rife with sort of, what Anand Giridharadas in his book, Winners Take All, is like dominated by wealthy white folk who need to moderate the pace of change in order to continue to benefit from the slow pace of change. So social justice fundraisers understand their role, not just in shepherding capital to advance progress within the realm of social justice, but they are very explicit with their stakeholders and their supporters about their role, right? And so a good friend of ours, Adetola, right? So she's got this beautiful framework to help understand how to map your social justice or equity strategy onto how you steward your donors. And that's a big, big part of it, is helping them see their role in helping you achieve your social justice mission.
Absolutely. And all of that, even just having the intention, whether you have fundraisers for your nonprofit organization or charity, or you're looking at sales teams that are looking to have a more equitable and transparent approach to how they bring clients and customers into your work, whoever are the resource bearers, right? Because essentially that's what we are as fundraisers, like bringing you all the tides. Okay, that's us. Wherever you sit within your nonprofit or your for-profit or your social good organization or business, having folks in your planning, having that as a purpose. Like, I want to make sure that we operate with intention. You can say it all you want, but you actually have to have a plan that says, and in order for this to be true, these are the things that we are going to be, do, and have. These are the things that we're going to bet on. These are the things we're going to say no to. And these are the folks that we are going to seek out and align ourselves with. So these are the types of questions that we're going to ask so that we can ensure that we're getting to this particular main vein around justice. And I think that that's something that good planning does.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna switch gears for a second because y'all know. Listen, Naima, we could talk fundraising stuff all day. So I just want y'all to know we got to come back for a different one because folks are asking all the good questions. I'm like, oh, we need to do a fundraising roundup. So I have some questions. So I have some lessons that I have been sharing with my list and sharing on my lives the last couple of weeks. So I want to get your take on them. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so I have how Biggie had the 10 crack commandments. Yes. So I got 5 lessons that in order for you to be a inclusive, dialed in, healthy manager that you've got to be able to do. Lesson 1. You see it on all.
Cannot always be nice. That's right.
Okay. Lesson 1.
Exactly.
Which means simply that even if you are in a place now where your team, there's anarchy in the ranks, okay, or there's confusion, or there's disengagement, or you yourself are burnt all the way out, or you're confused. Like, we can be in roles and be confused now. Let's be clear. Or you're just overwhelmed. It cannot always be night. And so that lesson to me is about understanding that through great planning, you can get to the other side. Okay, what's your reaction to that lesson?
Oh, I mean, it speaks to like the duality. There's always going to be some ease after difficulty. Like that's just a truism of life. But the plan is the bridge. The bridge, you may have a little boulder in the middle of the bridge, but meanwhile, you have a bridge because you can go over that boulder.
That's it.
And the plan is your directional pathway.
Yes.
For the end, right? And so, absolutely. I mean,
you got to build the bridge and lead over it. Okay, that's the bridge. My next tour.
I'm coming.
Right.
Come to
Cincinnati. You already said come to Cincinnati.
I've already got my front row seat to that.
Right in the front. Right in the front. Okay, so that's lesson 1. Okay, so now lesson 2. You want this, so you got to do that.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So if you want this healthy, active, high performing, engaged, taking ownership, speaking up, divvying up, working together, telling you when to stand down, snatching your edges, getting that edges snatched, all the things that healthy work relationships should look like. If you want that, you want this, that's the this you want, then you got to plan for it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. And it's a decision point for you. Because if you look at this and look at that and decide you don't want to do that, that's a decision.
You get to decide. Hello. Right. Okay. Lesson 3. You have to test the foundation before you get new tenants. So lots of us are homeowners. Some of us are investors, etc. And you might be a renter yourself. But if you have a home or you have a place of business, before you have the old tenants move out and move new tenants in, you better make sure that the lighting, the electrical, the foundation, the boiler, that everything is on point before you bring other people in. Otherwise, you're a slumlord. So we don't want no slumlord managers. Before you add new people to the team, you got to make sure your foundation.
You're right.
Come on now. Now you had to grow your team. So talk to me about that.
So, I mean, that this really resonates with me. First of all, I love any house metaphors. House metaphors are the best metaphors. They work for everything.
Yes, they do.
But, before you grow your team, you ask yourself some key questions. It's like, all right, well, what am I hiring for? Like, what specific skill am I looking for?
Yeah.
That rounds out the team and that makes the team complete. Right. And so, but before you even ask yourself that question, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, is everybody on my team supported in what they're doing? Have they been, have you enabled them to feel empowered to meet their goals? Have they had the stretch in terms of like how you've helped develop them with stretch goals? And so those are the preliminary questions you have to ask before you go adding someone to your team. What is your team dynamic like?
Yes.
Do you show up to meetings? People are disengaged, scrolling on the cell phone, no engagement. When you ask a question, it goes out into the ether,
Eye rolling.
Right, eye rolling. So what is the inner dynamic? And I manage a team remotely. So that's even harder to gauge.
Even harder because you got to pull across that screen.
That's right.
And get into people's hearts and minds.
So part of the foundation is like, how do people on your team work with each other?
Yes.
And it's not even that they have to like each other or love each other, although as as someone who brings the pathos into her work, my goal is that the team that we, part of the antithesis of white supremacy and racism is like unconditional love. And so I try to bring that into my team, and I want people to feel it. Yeah, we have the business, but then there's that aspect. And
There's
so
that aspect.
I want to know, when I bring someone to the team, well, what's their experience going to be?
Yes.
Are they going to see a team that's engaged and dialed in? A team that sees the sum of their parts, that they're bigger than just the sum of their parts? Or are they going to come into a team that isn't connected, a team that feels siloed and that doesn't feel like one success is the other,
Yeah.
So lesson number 3 resonates deeply with me.
Woo!
Don't grow your team if your team,
if your current
right,
they ain't right. Okay, get it right and tight before you.
But I have to be careful, because it being right, that's your job, right? Like,
hold on, you just told the people.
It's not just your team; it's you. If your team ain't right, it's like a mirror time. It's like
it's mirror time. It's mirror time.
But that's a hard realization, though, Kish. When you have to be like, is it me?
Which brings me to lesson 4. You're gonna be ready for this. Never get high on your own supply. Is it me?
Yeah.
It might be you. So what I meant by this was, we all want to be seen and heard and appreciated in a very specific way. There's 5 love languages at work. And oftentimes the way we came into our work and the way we came into management, either what we're modeling or, to your point earlier, what we're shifting so that we can do a new thing. We're like, well, if I like it, well, then everybody must like it. Well, if it was good for me, well, it must be good for everybody. As Neil Brown said to G Money, never get high on your own supply. And the whole thing went left when G Money started smoking. Okay. So don't smoke your stuff, managers, is the point. Leaders, you're over there smoking. My mother would say, you're smelling yourself. Okay. Because you've got to ensure that you're able to be a differentiated manager, right? So that each of your team members experience you with consistency, with transparency, with honesty, with integrity, but that it adapts to the way they receive information.
Absolutely. That speaks to equitable management too. You don't apply a one-size-fits-all approach to everybody. How is that equitable?
How is that equitable? No. And then the last lesson, you are not alone. I had to bring it down. Michael Jackson, I had to bring it down. You are not alone. The thing that I hear most, even when you were in your previous role before you came into this role, you were like, I'm out here by myself doing stuff. Like, what is happening right now? And so being able to work with someone who can help shepherd your ideas to completion, what was that feeling like? Because we did that work basically from day one when you joined your current organization.
Yeah. So look, it felt revelatory and liberating. That's another theme from this week. It felt liberating because, once again, we are taught to enter the space. We've got it all figured out, and we've dotted all the I's. We've got the plan. You show up at the plan, and it's like, what do you mean we're going to start with this strategy? That is not aligned at all. And so it requires a community, and it requires like a Sherpa. Like, I think about getting to the mountaintop of fundraising requires a whole Sherpa team.
Come on.
It's not just one Sherpa.
It's a team.
And so Kish has been one of my Sherpas. You have been one of my Sherpas. Because it's not just like getting the plan in place, but it's like, well, when you get to this part of the mountain, what you got to watch out for is X, Y, Z. And have you considered what you do when you reach this side of the mountain where the sun's blaring down, but meanwhile it's cold at night? And when you reach this part of the mountain, have you considered what happens when you're fatigued and your team is tapped out, you can't go anymore, but meanwhile the apex is just right here? So I like the we need a Sherpa. We need a Sherpa to help us map out the pathway, right? We have some idea of where we want to
Yeah,
go. We want to get here,
You're like,
right?
here, I need you here.
So where Kish comes in, like, here's base camp, here's where you want to be. And so where Kish comes in is like those interstitial pathways up to the top of the mountain, helping you map it out and making sure that you can do that in a way that's intact, that keeps you focused on goal, and helps you understand, well, how will I know that I'm getting to the top? How will I know that I am accomplishing what I set out to do? And so it's liberating, it's revelatory, and then it feels like it feels like you have a community, really, of support. It's just so important in this work. So important.
I love that, and I appreciate that. Listen, y'all, I could talk about myself. I don't really talk about myself. I don't really talk about myself, but I'm like, I done told the people, Naima, okay, I said you have to come on to Ready, Set, Implement Live, because
Yes.
most of my clients work with me one-on-one. So
Yes.
you have the opportunity to get the best of my framework, to get the best of, look, with me being a Sherpa.
Yeah.
The best to get to building out the things that are already on paper. Because, you know, a lot of us have stuff in Dropbox, in the Google Drive, on sticky notes. You know, I'm famous for my sticky notes, on sticky notes. But you want to be able to put it together.
I had to get a fresh pack the other day.
I know it. Listen, I was like, I think that's a prerequisite of being a part of the Fab Group. If you don't have sticky notes, you can't come.
You're not invited.
You're not invited. But like that, they have the opportunity to work with me to build out or to refine what's been in their mind on paper, what they haven't been able to translate, what they've been meaning to do, where they feel stuck. And so being able to do that and then have peers, remember back to what I said about being able to have that peer group so that you're not alone, lesson 5. And that you can look to your left and right and go, let's talk after this about that. Okay, you do something similar to what I do. All right. Because we're not going to solve world peace as we see from this week in the news.
No, yeah.
But it will give you some peace in your organization. So I just so appreciate you just letting folks know what was the transformation on the other side for you of that. And you've been able to navigate the waters of the changing philanthropic landscape, the changing people management landscape, right? Because you came into your role when folks were already running fast and running long, which
the pedal was to the metal. I mean, yeah.
You were like, let's drop it in throttle 6. And I was like, hold on, go back to 4 real quick.
Yeah, go back to 4.
Make sure that the oil and the brake pads and everything before we do
get your routine maintenance to be sure you're not running the machine into the ground. And sorry, and that's the wrong analogy, because we're talking about people here.
But burning the people to get to the outcome is what many of us have been taught to do.
Yeah.
And it's our go-to place when the goals are high, the time is short, the stress is high, the people's desire to win is high. So you're like, if I just push one more month, one more minute, one more, and I'm like, hold on.
It's hard too, right? Because I'm beginning to even wonder, is the pressure of fundraising, like fund development in general, business development, isn't antithetical to self-care? And I'm getting to this point where I'm like, it's really making me question. And so then I start thinking about solutions, right? How are you resourcing your team so they can overperform without overdoing it?
Yeah.
And so it's a question that I'm constantly sitting with for myself and for my team. When the car feels like it's on full throttle and you need more, and meanwhile you're going as fast as you can, it's not like you can just add more gas to that tank to make you go faster.
Exactly right.
So
exactly right. And that's where we then leverage our plan, like pulling into the repair shop.
Yeah.
Because that gives you the opportunity to just, even think about, we're using the car analogy, think about NASCAR. And I love NASCAR. And I remember when I lived in Charlotte, they were one of our funders, the foundation was one of our funders, and it was a whole thing. And so I got to be around all the races and so forth. And I remember being so fascinated growing up in New York City. I never saw that. When the car would pull into the pit.
Yep.
And all of the guys would run up to the car and the 4 wheels would be off and they'd be changed in 2 minutes flat. I mean, it was just like magic. But they had to plan and practice and plan and strategize and plan and practice for repair.
For repair, yeah.
And so with the great resignation, like looming in every single manager's rearview mirror, having a solid plan allows you to be able to pull into the pit.
Oh, I love that.
Come on, you know when I get good, I'm when I get going.
You with the analogies, it's like there is no analogy Kish cannot just pull out of thin air that isn't totally clarifying. I love that.
Well, listen, I could talk to you all day, as you know.
Yes,
we have all day, but I'm letting you go because you got money to raise, people to manage, things to see and do, and a big job to fill. So I just want to thank you so much for hanging out with me on this Friday, for talking with me, for giving folks the real deal on what it means to be a dialed and inclusive leader and manager, and for, giving me my flowers. That's always a good thing about that. And so I'm going to let you go. Listen, y'all, if you're staying with me on Instagram Live, I'm going to be talking about Ready, Set, Implement Live, but I want Naima to get back to her job. So my friend, my darling, I will see you real soon. You can disconnect. Listen, friends, I am so excited that Ready, Set, Implement Live is happening in just 4 days. Cannot believe it. We've been talking about this for weeks. You've seen all of my videos. Go back and binge every single one of them if you want. Ask me questions. I did a whole Q&A yesterday that I sent out to my list this morning. So if you're not on the Fab Crew list, make sure you go to KISHSHANA.co/crew and just get on the list so you can get it. But most importantly, I want to make sure that if you have been on the fence, get your butt off the fence and sign up for Ready, Set, Implement Live at bit.ly/RSI Live. And the reason I want you to do that, friends, is because it is life-changing. What's life-changing about it? When you leave me at 2:00 on Tuesday, okay, the belly's going to be growling, so your life would have been changed. But also, I'm going to help you take all of the different strategic plans and marketing plans and this plan and that plan. And we're going to focus on your people plan. And what I mean by that is, what will you need as a leader, as a manager, whether you are a CEO running your own company, big or small, whether you are a VP working for a Fortune 500 or a nonprofit organization, whether you're an executive director who's doing all the things, and whether you're a new manager who's like, you know what, I need to bone up on this like today so that I can absolutely do the darn thing at work. Join me. This is the kind of investment that will help you save thousands of dollars in vacancies, in the roles that you are hiring for, in having the wrong people in seat that's slowing you down, in you spending time on tasks where you should be spending time on your responsibilities. It's not going to fix all the things in the world, but it will be an actionable plan that'll get you started. And I'll teach you my framework on how I do it. So I am so excited about this, y'all. I can't tell you. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, drop them in my DMs. Reach out to me at letschat@KishshanaCo.com. And I'm going to be back on Monday with another video because, I can't let it live. And the class is on Tuesday. And then I'll be doing these weekly, y'all. So let me know what you think. If you like me going live once a week, talking to you, a shot of vitamin K, having some great guests on, talking about work and life and love and all the things. And also let me know how you feel about that, because it's a joy to do it, but it was scary, y'all. And so make sure that you sign up for Ready, Set, Implement Live. If you were on my list, I even sent out a little coupon just for you, but you got to be on my list to get it. You're not getting it any other way. And so if you haven't joined my list, KISHSHANA.co/crew, sign up and you'll be able to get on the list. And if you're on Instagram, it's right in my bio. Just go and click on the links and then you'll be able to sign up right from there. So I am out of here, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me today for the last 40 minutes. It's so great. And I will talk to y'all real soon. All right, y'all. You ever been in a meeting? You're just minding your business, following the agenda, and then one of your teammates says something to you that makes you go, what the fudge is going on right now? And so you lean back, touch the bridge of your nose, and you go, we're going to have to talk about this later. So you lean to your colleague and you say the only thing that you know that will get this meeting back on track. Let's take this offline. You know what I'm talking about? Well, my new podcast, Let's Take This Offline, the podcast for everyday leaders. invite you in to the conversation that is the meeting after the meeting. On this podcast, we don't do the regular schmegula leadership topics of the day. We don't put you to sleep. We give you the real deal on the types of things we should be talking about in leadership and, frankly, y'all, in life. So I invited on some of my friends who happen to be CEOs, technologists, strategists, psychologists, relationship experts, and big thinkers in their respective fields to just kind of unpack some of the foolishness, the shenanigans, the tomfoolery, and even the joy of being an inclusive and dialed in leader in today's environment. Let's Take This Offline, the podcast for everyday leaders with your host, that's me, Kishshana Palmer, on wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Make sure you download, you subscribe, and then you run back here and tell me, how'd you like it? I'll be seeing you soon on Let's Take This Offline.